How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. Let's go over the books I read this week. We're going to start over in DC. We have Dark Knights of Steel All Winter. We have issue number 3 out. Now, this book has been incredible so far. I didn't read volume number 1, but volume number 2 is really blowing me away because we have this really great relationship between Slade and this like magical kid. He's got this power to bring color back to the world. We don't quite know what that means yet or like the source behind it, although inside of issue number 3, there's definitely some hints maybe around that power and where it comes from. We also have a great cast of characters in here as well. So we have a new fan favorite featured on the cover right here showing up, and there's a really interesting combination of powers that this particular character has, and it's got me having some questions, and I really can't wait to explore that some more. Of course, there's going to be some battling, some team ups, really great stuff happening, but this book is all about vibe, it's about feel, it's about that use of color palette. That's what's really got me excited about this book. All Winter issue number 3, really exciting. Let me know if you're reading it. Next up is Hellblazer Dead in America. We have issue number 9 right here. So I've never been more excited and more confused about a book, to be honest with you. There is this underlying narrative that we essentially abandon, and what takes place of that is these really complicated, really intricate stories with all these new characters every single issue. So we have our main cast of characters. They're going across America, but they're dealing with all these really localized magical or like demonic threats, and it's all woven into the overall story in a very complex way. Man, like I cannot imagine like the high level storyboard for this and then how they got all these separate issue stories to fit all together. But I think in a collected read, this is going to be really, really exciting. Single issues, it could be a little bit daunting, man. You get through this book, first off, it takes probably 5 times longer than any other book because it's so dense and there's so many things happening. The artwork's incredible in here as well, but like you're dealing with a lot of complex things, a lot of reoccurring characters, but again, the roles they play combined with some of the new characters and the roles that they play to the overall theme, it's complex. I will say that. So I think a trade read would be amazing for this one. I'm excited to read it issue to issue for you guys. Let me know if you're reading it though, down below. All right, let's jump over to Marvel. We have Ultimate X-Men issue number 7. So coming out of Hellblazer, I said it was a complex read, but I was really enjoying it. This is kind of the opposite. It's still a complex read. I'm kind of like on the fence with this story, to be honest with you. I will say issue number 7 was one of my favorite issues though, because this one actually gives us a little bit of context about like who the bad guys are and what their motivation is, which kind of was lacking in the previous issues. We were led to believe one thing. There was this mysterious boy with this weird dark energy shadow power. We had assumptions about who that was, but now we're unpacking like the secret society behind the scenes that is kind of like pulling the strings and doing some really maniacal stuff. So like that's starting to be unpacked a little bit in here, and I'm really enjoying that part of the story. If they would have opened the series with this perspective of like the bad guy, I think I would have enjoyed the past 6 issues. I think the book still suffers with a little bit of a pacing issue. Things happen very quickly. There's not a lot of like hand-holding or things like that. There's a lot of space between panels. Like entire scenes will unfold in a matter of like a half of a page. And it kind of makes me, have to put the pieces together manually, which is fine. If that's the way that she wants to tell the story, then that's on me to figure it out. But I will say the book could use a little bit more hand-holding, I think, to really develop what's going on. But issue number 7, not too bad, better than the rest of them. Let me know if you guys are reading it. Continuing with Marvel, we have XFactor issue number 2. Mark Russell's one of my favorite writers of all time. The level of satire and the complexity and the emotion that he can put inside of a story is what makes him one of the best in my opinion. Now, I don't know if the shackles of Marvel are on him right now or anything like that, but this story right here, it has a familiar vibe, a Mark Russell vibe to it, having being tied to like social media and the impacts of that, the influencer society, and like the corporations that run that and how they manipulate the scene. But I don't know after 2 issues, and it's only been 2 issues, if I'm not invested in the characters quite yet. The whole first team was practically expendable, and so now we have a new team. We have to relearn who they are and their power sets and whatnot, and there is one mutant in particular on the team who's pretty funny. She's like this grandmother who's immortal, so she really doesn't have a great power set, and she's an old granny at this point, so like how useful is she going to be? I don't know, but he's going to do a lot of cool things with that character. So I will say like the overall theme of the book, the plot of the book, the story behind it hasn't quite grabbed me yet. His satire is pulling me through, but for how much longer, I'm not entirely sure. We have issue number 2 out right now. What do you guys think about this new X run in general? And what do you think about X Factor? Let me know. Next up, we have X-Men issue number 4. Picking it up for the cover. Going to go ahead and read it, though, just to see what's going on, because I feel like we owe this new run of X books several issues to kind of get their bearings, right? See where we are. Now, I think there's going to be some connection, obviously, between X-Men and XFactor. There's this social media guy here who's kind of running the show. He wants the views. He wants the likes. He wants all this stuff. And he's actually teaming up with some other villains that we're going to see in here. And they're going to take on our X-Men team, or parts of the X-Men team. We do go over that dialogue a little bit about how this villain team doesn't earn the respect of like having some of the main X-Men characters on there. Cool battles. Artwork continues to be like good and weird at the same time. I like his artwork. I like his line work and everything. But, you know, Diaz stepping in here is interesting. And there's not a whole lot of complaints from that perspective. Again, the battles were fine and everything. But one thing I will say, just a gripe on Marvel in general, as I'm flipping through, I tend to want to find pages that are interesting for you guys to look at while I'm flipping through. And I would say a third of this book are ads like this. So it's like, yeah, you get to look at that page right there, but you also get to look at this ad page as well. Marvel needs to do better, man. A third of their book are just ads, and that's ridiculous. But I digress. X-Men number 4, it's a decent book right now. It hasn't got its claws in me. We're 4 issues in. How long do you guys give a book before you give up on it? Let me know below. All right, let's go over to Boom Studios. We have The Graveyard Club, issue number 1. Now, this book is huge, and it's from R.L. Stine, or from that company, and it's a new one from Boom, so I wanted to check this one out. So I would say that it's not really written for me. If you have a younger reader, probably, you know, 10, 11, 12, something like that, and they're into like the R.L. Stine volume of horror in their stories, this might be a really cool thing for them. But basically, it's in the title right there, The Graveyard Club. There's a bunch of kids that go to high school. They have complex personalities. There's some dating going on in between the club members and things like that. We have the more, you know, daring personality. We have the real bookworm personality. We have all these different ones going on. And of course, they have some bullies that they're dealing with. And there's a spooky element because some of their parents, some of their fathers have went missing in a mysterious way. There's this weird conspiracy thing going on in town. And so it's really a big slice of life thing with a little bit of horror and a little bit of suspense and drama thrown into it. So I would say that if your kids are into this kind of thing, then you might want to show them this book, The Graveyard Club, issue number 1. It's way longer than a single issue. I don't know if it's in a trade format or whatnot, but it was really interesting if you're into that kind of stuff. So Graveyard Club number 1, not too bad. What'd you guys think? Next up from Zach Thompson, we have Jock and we have Hassan on the letters too. The Body Trade, issue number 1 from Mad Cave. Now, this is a pretty cool book too. I kind of took a chance on this one and read it. This was interesting because it's actually featuring this like secret weird organization who will take recently deceased subjects from hospitals for scientific reasoning. And we don't quite know exactly what that means yet. We just know that there's layers and layers of shady characters around there. And we have this other aspect where this family is grieving at the loss of their child. They came in, this company came in and they said, we're going to pay all the expenses and everything. Just donate your son's body to science. There's a weird, complex situation going on with the parents. They're divorced. One is dealing with obviously a lot of trauma and has therapy things going on. And the mom is in this real anger mode right now, obviously. And there's so many mixed emotions going on with the family on top of this shady business practice with their loved one's body. So like, there's a lot of cool things happening in here. The art is really cool as well. You know, it's very trippy and it's very eerie. And so I think they captured a really good vibe with the story and the art. So they're doing a really good job of meshing from that perspective. So The Body Trade, it's a cool horror story so far, and it's got this really great human element too. Let me know if you're reading it. All right, The Moon is Following Us, issue number 1. Daniel Warren Johnson's on this one. We have Riley Rosmo and Mike Spicer, of course, on the colors for this. Highly anticipated book from Daniel Warren Johnson. It's a project he's been working on for quite some time with Riley, and it shows inside the pages. Now, Daniel Warren Johnson's writing is known to be very emotional, hit you right to the core, and have lots of ups and downs and excitement in it. This book is absolutely no different to that. So we have this grieving family right now. We don't exactly know the exact situation, but they're in this weird like fantasy sci-fi kind of environment. And we learn a little bit more about that environment towards the end. Weird looking monsters everywhere, shady characters all over the place, companions all over as well. And they're going through this mission right now to recover some kind of an artifact to help them along the way in the near future. We're unpacking that still right now, but the gut punch comes at the very end when we understand how the parents got there, why they're there, and what they're fighting for. That's what this book is all about. Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley kind of trade off in bits and pieces on the art inside the book too. There's really cool things happening in here from a visual perspective. Again, it's that gut punch story that we're going to be getting from Daniel Warren Johnson. Really excited to see where this book goes. Let me know if you're reading it down below. Next up, we have Ice Cream Man issue number 41 with the James Bond cover right there, which is why a lot of people are probably going to pick this one up if you're not typical Ice Cream Man fans. But if you are, you're going to have a pretty good story in here. Very rarely do we have a story that's connected to the overall theme of Ice Cream Man. We have 41 issues. There's probably, less than a dozen of them that have anything to do with the main theme, besides just Easter eggs being sprinkled in there. But we're featuring a James Bond type character right now. He is over in Mexico. He's dealing with this mission right now to, get more information, take out the bad guy, things like that. What he does, though, is he gets wrapped into this big conspiracy theory having to deal with the milk, the Holt industry that is here. Holt is a brand that we've seen peppered in many, many Ice Cream Man books in the past. It has to do with poisoning that supply, going to America, things like that. And there's this big cover-up happening here that our agent has to dig through. And there's some pretty shocking, monster type things that he has to deal with as well. The company he works for is kind of on the hush-hush, and that's another cool element of this entire thing. He's having to deal with a lot of different emotions during this entire story. So not your typical Ice Cream Man book, not even from an existential perspective, but it ties into the larger theme, which is always fun to see. Let me know if you're reading it. Next up from Image Comics is Tin Can Society issue number 1. Now, this was a really compelling story. We actually are featuring this group of people who grew up. They went to school together. They're now adults, but their whole friendship was basically centered around this one new kid who was handicapped. He had some congenital issues when he was born, and he had to deal with life in a really bad way, bad parents and whatnot. But he relied on these group of kids that befriended him in high school, and it's a story about how they grew up and the relationships that they formed throughout their lives. The book opens up in a real shocking way with this murder within their group, and they have to kind of get together, talk to each other, figure out what's going on. The perspective of the story is from our main character here, and she is actually a detective, something like that. She's trying to uncover the truth. She's paying off cops, getting behind the scenes on the crime scene, whatnot, and she's actually kind of interviewing or almost interrogating some of the former friends because there's certain things that only they know about this victim, and so she thinks it's somebody from inside the ranks, in other words. So Tin Can Society issue number 1, really compelling story so far, great artwork as well. Highly recommend checking it out. Next up is Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. We have issue number 4 right here. Issue number 3 was one of my picks of the month last month because it was shocking, a lot of cool things happening, and that was the first issue where our two main characters, our cowboy and our samurai, really got together and started to solidify that falling in love part of the title right there. They were already in hell, now they're falling in love, and we get to see a little bit of that inside this book here, although the story takes a dramatic turn, so let's go over it right now. So in the previous issue, our cowboy character essentially went against the grain. He did not want to fight anymore. He has some issues going on right now physically and mentally, so the leader of this army that he's part of right now sent some assassins to basically take him out. He was rescued by his samurai friend, and now we're on the mend right now. And of course, he's got some revenge mission in mind for him, but he wants to kind of talk it out, move forward, because they're kind of in purgatory right now and they need to be aligned. He actually gets betrayed in this issue and goes on this psychedelic journey almost right here. And the people we meet during this journey are not who we think we're going to meet. There's some revelations in here. Maybe there's other planes or other ways to ascend. The evil characters that he knows are going to ascend in some other way, either metaphysically or something with their personalities and whatnot. And he's learning now that he's actually part of that journey, that maturing process for them. And he needs to get back in and be part of that process. And so it's a really cool story about having to go against your nature, right? You have these guys that are after you. They're doing things you don't want to do, but you have to stay engaged in this process because there's no other way out of this situation, maybe besides just doing that. So really cool things happening there. He comes back, he teams back up with his samurai girl, and of course we're going to be trying to figure out a way out of the situation going forward. So Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, another great issue. Let me know if you're reading it. Next up from Image is Destro. We have issue number 4 right here. Another great issue of Destro. I've never really known the character that well, to be honest with you. I grew up a little bit here and there with the cartoon and things like that. Some of the movies, I had some of the action figures, but this has been a really great, almost like a documentary into his life, to be honest with you. We know about his personality, his lineage, his power, his influence over the country, and now we know some of the other people that he's messing around with and who's gunning for him inside the series. So they're doing a really great job of putting us in his shoes, seeing what it's like to be him and some of the deals he has to do, some of the technology he has, and he's teaming up with other people to understand this broader technology that's out there. And, we're just getting a glimpse into where this story could possibly go. We have a former ally, or I guess a current ally of his, but somebody he's butted heads with in the past, showing up as well, maybe even teaming up with some of his enemies. So we're going to be seeing a little bit of a power struggle coming here soon. Destro, man, he's been beaten down, but he always rises back up to the occasion. This is a really exciting issue. Can't wait for more. Let me know if you guys are reading it. Next up from the Kints is Guilt Frame. We have issue number 2. I think there's only 3 issues in this series, and that's totally fine because these boys are thick. It's practically a trade for each issue. Dark Horse is putting out this one, and it's a really exciting issue. If you love overseas French murder mysteries, I think you're really going to like this one. It's definitely a whodunit kind of a thing. We have this art gallery where there's this murder has taken place, and there's so many people that are involved in this murder. The police have locked the place down. The murderer is in the building, and we don't know who it is, but we have this police detective coming in. He's questioning all the people, including our 2 Americans who are over there to like check out the antiques and whatnot that they have, and there's a whole history behind that I'll let you get into. But this whole issue is just interrogation scene after interrogation scene. The detectives are pulling in everybody individually. He's questioning them, figuring out their backgrounds, their motives, why they're there, and there's a complex family drama unfolding inside of here as well. Mostly about like who gets the wealth of this guy when he dies, changing in the wills, things like that. People from outside the family coming in, fortunes that should be left for the kids are in question right now, things like that. So it's a kind of story where everybody has a motive, so to speak, and it's probably not going to be the most obvious person who actually committed the crime, but I'm having a great time reading this murder mystery from the Kints right now. And of course, it's peppered with everything that we expect from a Matt Kint book from an art perspective. So Guilt Frame issue number 2, spectacular read. Let me know if you're reading it. All right, guys, so that's all I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you read down below in the comments and what your pick of the week is. Of course, while you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.